Hello and welcome to the Go Home Show podcast brought to you by SPORF, your one-stop shop for all things professional wrestling, with weekly chats with WWE superstars, all the news you might have missed from the previous 7 days, and a look back at some of the most infamous moments in wrestling history. Joining me, as ever, is the greatest stable that you may have never heard of. It's Elliott Ames, the Crusher, Chris Anderson. Gents, straight into it, because it's a monumentous day here in the UK. NXT UK is back. Crusher, you're speaking to the great and good. New studio, new setting, but it's great to have it back, isn't it?
Yeah, it's perfect to have it back. Later on, we're going to have an interview with Flash Morgan Webster and Mark Andres. Stay around to hear that. But yeah, it's going to be amazing. We've seen the videos of Triple H posting it. It's at BT Sports Studios. It's a great setup. It's going to be a UK version of Full Sail, which NXT have over in America. And what better to start with than a heritage tournament, British rules, with Flash Morgan Webster, Noam Dar, Alexandra Wolf, A-Kid, Dave Mastiff, Trent Seven, Joseph Connors, and an unnamed 8th person.
Mick, just to give insight on this podcast, you've actually been to those studios and watched wrestling in them, haven't you?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to go down to the BT Sport event in January when they launched. So I met like Ric Flair, Stephanie McMahon, a few of us, just dropping it in. Got to drop it in.
He's behind you as well.
Yeah, he's behind me.
It's a bit creepy, I'll be honest.
Did a couple of interviews as well. We interviewed Paige, Kurt Angle, and then they had a few matches. They had Gallus.
Sheamus' first match, wasn't it?
Yes, it was Sheamus' first match back. He faced Andrade. Yeah. Charlotte faced Nikki Cross. Mm-hmm. And then it was Trent Seven, Tyler Bate, and Ilya Dragunov against Gallus as well.
Love that. Chris, as a man in the wrestling UK scene, you must be delighted to see this back. And, you know, let's not say too much, but you maybe could be there one day.
Oh, I hope so. It's a nice dream to have, isn't it? I think it's good just to have, like we said last week, that polished British TV wrestling back again. It's been a long time. It's obviously very understandable why it had to take a brief hiatus. Yeah. But I think it's nice as well to bring in, as we were saying, British rules matches and stuff like that. A bit of the old world of sport style of wrestling and to bring it into the modern day. So I'm very, very excited for.
E-Dog, we've watched lots of wrestling together over the years, but it's just great to have in the UK as well. But for me, it's almost acting as a bit of a restart to get me back into the product as well.
Yeah, I feel the same way, purely because of the fact that we do have the Heritage Tournament coming through as well, which is effectively what started NXT UK. And if you know me, I love my tournaments in wrestling, and I think it's a great way to kind of get people reconnected with the stars. You get to see little storylines form, and then you can have a good selection of feuds going forward for weekly television. So, yeah, I'm really excited for it to be back. I think it's the best way to have a little reboot as such. And, should be really exciting.
Yes, we'll all be checking it out. That'll be out on BT Sport, and, of course, you can get it on the WWE Network. Next, we are moving on, and I'll be turning my attentions to a man that knows a lot about tag teams. We've had lots of tag team news this week. Seth and Buddy appear to have split, but with Seth Rollins and his weird, creepy ways, you never know if that's just a telling off. Cedric and Ricochet have gone their separate ways. Garza and Andrade have gone their separate ways. AOP have been released. The Iconics are separated. Chris, you've not split up with your tag team, mate, have you?
No, not yet. Well, I wouldn't blame him if he did. I'm riding his coattails for as long as I can do. But for now, we're still going strong. Yeah, it's been a really weird 6 months for tag team wrestling in WWE. I mean, you look at, I think it was Raw, where we had SmackDown champions versus the Raw champions, because there wasn't really anyone left for them to do anything else with. There's still an abundance of talent within the WWE tag team division, and I'm sure there will be a place we're going to with this, but it seems like the default storyline builder at the moment has been create a tag team, have them run a little bit, split that tag team, they feud, rinse, repeat. So I'm a little nervous about what's to come next, but you know, it's been a journey, it's been a ride.
I think that means that there's going to be a lot more single superstars teaming up and putting a wry smile on Chris's face. Chris said the word weird. It doesn't get much more weirder than Bray Wyatt and Sister Abigail. Alexa Bliss looks like she's joining the fold, Elliott. I'm really enjoying that storyline.
It's one of the things I wasn't expecting going into, the Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt feud was the inclusion of Alexa Bliss. The fact that she does do Sister Abigail on Nikki Cross during their, I believe it was a Fatal 4-Way match last week on SmackDown. The fact that they're just teasing it each and every week, slowly building it up, because there's no point kind of throwing all your eggs in one basket and just going really, really quickly with it. I think this is going to be a very long and compelling storyline, as we're seeing. And I love it. I think it's great. I think Alexa Bliss, she's achieved pretty much everything she can regularly in the women's division. I'd like seeing when women's superstars end up having a very integral role in men's feuds. I think it could work out really well, having her, be kind of the person who maybe is in command of Bray. I don't know where it's going. As you say, it's bloody weird, but it's great. And the fact that they haven't completely shifted her and changed her gimmick yet and all that sort of stuff, we can build to that later on. And knowing Bray Wyatt, there's probably going to be some cinematic matches coming on down the line, which means there's going to be some more silliness going forward.
NXT last night, Mick. Some big things to come out of it. Number one contenders. Talk me through it.
Yeah, so we had Shotzi Blackheart against Io Shirai in a non-title match as well. That was a really good match. Check it out if you haven't already. And then it was announced for next Wednesday, there's going to be 11 women battle royale for challenging Io Shirai for the NXT Women's Championship. So they are Shotzi Blackheart, Katie Catanzaro, Indy Hartwell, Aaliyah, Dakota Kai, Candice LeRae, Rhea Ripley, Tegan Nox, Raquel Gonzalez, Kaden Carter, and Zia Lee. So yeah, there's a lot of talent. And for me, I hope that former podcast guest Tegan Nox wins the match and goes on to challenge Io Shirai. We also had a gauntlet match announced for the NXT men's title. So there's no participants been revealed yet, but it's going to be a gauntlet eliminator match next Wednesday. 2 men start in the ring. Every 4 minutes, another competitor will enter. The only way to be eliminated is via pinfall or submission, and whoever wins that match goes on to face Finn Balor for the NXT Championship NXT Takeover, which got announced yesterday as well, I believe, early October for that takeover.
Love that. And Mick doesn't realise by listing off those lists of women superstars, he's actually won the quiz for this week as well. So 2 birds with one stone. Well done there. Mick, just to round off the news as well, it was announced last night Wade Barrett will be permanently joining the NXT commentary table. I don't know about you fellas, but whatever partnership he's with, although it's bad news, it's great news, and I'm just delighted to see him back, Elliott.
Buzzing with the news, particularly with Mauro Ranallo leaving the company recently. I think it's good that they've got someone in very quickly, someone who's established, someone who's beloved by the WWE audience. The fact that he has the credentials, he's won the IC title so many times and was great as the leader of the Nexus. He's got a great voice as well, which also helps when you're hearing commentary. I think it's a really, really good move. And I don't know if it was just a trial run. I think they were probably planning this a few weeks back anyway. But yeah, absolutely great news.
Yeah, and I mean, whatever happens as well, if he comes back over to the UK side of things, that NXT UK commentary table will be stacked as well, won't it? Right, gents, so we move on to Convince Me, Elliott, and I believe some news caught your attention. So, my friend, would you like to lead this one?
Yeah, sure. As you all know, Convince Me is the segment where each member will bring an answer and will try to convince others that theirs is the best answer to a particular question. And, well, given the recent news that the great Mandalorian series, the Star Wars series over on Disney Plus, is coming back on October 31st, I decided to watch the trailer because I'm a big fan of Star Wars. And something caught my eye, which is that the boss, Sasha Banks, is actually in it, which I had no idea about. I don't recall reading anything about this. And it got me thinking, what is the best acting role from a WWE superstar over the years? You can do this over any era. It can be from the 80s all the way up till now. And yeah, I wanted to get your guys' thoughts. I think I'm going to be throwing a bit of a curveball towards the end with my answer, because I don't think you guys have gone in the same sort of reign I have. But yeah, I'm going to start off with, tell you what, let's start off with Chris. Go on. I want to see what you got to say.
I've had a quick look at some of the answers that were suggested. So I'm going to give very quick shout outs. Firstly, to the greatest actor to come out of wrestling, which is obviously John Cena, who only does heaters. And obviously then Batista on top of that. However, when we're talking about the best acting role from a WWE superstar, there is only one answer that could possibly be right, and that was Goldberg in Law and Order Special Victims Unit. Now, for those who may not have seen this, I highly
think that's
recommend.
a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a niche answer, but it's worth it. Goldberg plays a large gentleman who is very, very tanked up on PCP and is essentially playing Goldberg in his WCW role, in that it takes the entire police force to take him down. He gets hit over the head with a fire extinguisher, no sells it. He gets hit with a taser, no sells it. He puts people through windows. He swings an arm and clean knocks someone out within 3 seconds of being on. It's about a 30-second role, but the fact that it didn't win an Oscar or an Emmy or a Brit or a Cannes Award is honestly probably the biggest miscarriage of justice since they broke up every tag team for the last 6 months.
Do you think the taser bit was maybe a reference to his WCW days at all?
It could well be. The whole thing, if I'm honest, the whole thing is his entire WCW role perfectly summed up in a 30-second montage. If you've not seen it, find it on YouTube. It's well worth it, and it will just make you happy.
Excellent. Well, let's go over to you, Crush. What have you chosen?
Yeah, so this is a film that I'd probably watch at least 2 or 3 times a year because I just find it hilarious. And it is The Longest Yard. So it came out 15 years ago and it features the great wrestling cast of all time. So the 4 wrestlers that are in it are Stone Cold, Kevin Nash, Goldberg, and Great Khali. And it is Great Khali's role I'm nominating for this because he plays this absolute giant. He's locked away in maximum security where he doesn't talk to anyone. He plays table tennis against himself up with one side of the board up. And Adam Sandler comes in and tries to play against him. And it's hilarious. And then the guard keeps pushing him. And he's basically, in as short words, is he playing over there? Yeah. He gets involved. And then the story of it is Adam Sandler's character threw an NFL game back in the day for money. So the warden says if he doesn't throw this one, he'll make sure he stays in there forever. And at halftime, he does the whole thing where he says, I've got a fake injury. And then when he comes back in the second half, Great Khali's, good, I don't have to kill you anymore. And yeah, it's very good. It's got an amazing cast. I talked about Chris before, like some of the stars. It's got Burt Reynolds from the original 1974 film. It's got Adam Sandler, Chris Rock, Nelly, Bob Sapp, Terry Crews, William Fichtner, who's in Prison Break. A lot of talent, and yeah, that is my nomination.
I think that is a great shout. I actually watched that a couple of months ago, believe it or not, for the first time in a very long time. And I was more surprised just seeing the number of wrestlers in it. I remembered Goldberg, I remembered Khali, I forgot that Kevin Nash and Stone Cold were in it. It's a really good eclectic cast, and they're all great for this sort of football, police officer sort of movie. I think that was a really good choice, Crush. Great stuff, Crush. Will, I did have a bit of a caveat in the WhatsApp chat, people, just to make you all aware, which was not to choose this certain superstar to make it a little bit easier. To make it a little bit harder for everyone. But Will, you've still gone and chosen arguably the most famous person to come out of wrestling.
Yeah, that's right, Elliott. I've gone for The Big Show and The Big Show on Netflix now. I think what we can all agree on is that is quintessentially one of the greatest pieces of film, art, comedy, entertainment, all wrapped into one. The big guy really brings it home in the series. And a lot of people were sort of debating whether he could do it, whether his acting skills were up to scratch. But when you see him walk on that set with his big, lovable sort of smile and appearances from Mark Henry and Mick Foley as well, but that doesn't surpass the big man. And The Big Show, for me, in the 8-part series, The Big Show is... that blows me away just speaking about it now. So that's my answer.
Is it really?
Yeah.
That's not what I've got on my sheet, mate.
Well, let's keep you guessing. Do you know what I mean? Come in with a little surprise at the end. You think you know who you've got, and then it's much like that Big Show. It just keeps you guessing all the time. Not predictable at all.
Yeah, not predictable. Will was going to put in The Rock in Jumanji, which I haven't seen that film. I've seen the original.
On a serious note, they are actually well good.
Are they really?
And they can put that on the film poster.
Well good.
Well good.
One of the things that surprises me, though, about your guys' choices is that you haven't picked a wrestler who plays a wrestler in a film or a television show. And this got me thinking when I thought of the idea, like, what is my favourite film that is about wrestling that stars a wrestler within it? And I started looking down a rabbit hole and looking at all these lists and stuff. And I remembered that there was the Jim Carrey film, Man on the Moon, which I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's a classic. It's one of Jim Carrey's best movies. I'd argue it's probably his most underrated film. But the best thing about it is he plays the comedian Andy Kaufman. Now, Andy Kaufman was basically the king of anti-comedy and kind of trolling the audience and making you kind of second guess, like, is this real? Is this fake? Essentially, is this a work? Is this a shoot? All throughout his career, which led to him actually becoming a wrestler part-time. And I would argue one of the greatest wrestling heels of all time, because he was basically just saying he is the best wrestler in the world, but would only fight women and would get women from the audience and have a wrestling match, and through dastardly means would cheat to win, and would be the intergender wrestling champion of the world, and was parading around on talk shows and all that sort of stuff. This then led to him going down to Memphis to face a certain Jerry the King Lawler, who plays himself within the film. And honestly, it's shot for shot accurate in so many moments. Even Jim Ross makes an appearance on commentary when they're in Memphis. It's a really good tribute to wrestling. And on top of that, my favorite moment is when, I don't know if you may have seen this, but Andy Kaufman got slapped by Jerry the King Lawler on the David Letterman show and goes on a big tirade, starts throwing F-bombs and saying, I'm going to sue you and all that sort of stuff. It's big, over-the-top neck brace, but nobody can really tell at the time that it was a work. You know, this was all just building up to this big rivalry, and then, you know, it would help sell tickets for shows, essentially. And Jerry the King Lawler, even in the film, says, I think this was a brilliant tribute to wrestling, because it paid absolute respect to it. It's, as Jim Carrey says in the film, it's ballet, it's theatre. And for me, it's probably the best representation of wrestling to maybe people who had gone into it, not known about it or not really understood it. So that's why I've gone for Jerry the King Lawler. And also because he plays himself, so it's kind of hard not to play yourself very well and come across as believable. But then again, that's just my opinion and the guy's opinion on what is the best acting role from a WWE superstar. I want you, our Go Home Show podcast audience, to let us know over on Twitter or on the comments on YouTube. What is your personal choice?
Of that E-Dog, I think I know who's going to win that. And there's a little show on Netflix that I think is going to take home the crown. But moving on, who's going to take home the crown of this week's quiz? Chris, it's over to you.
Yes, that is right. It is this week's quiz. Now, for those who were listening last week will know that I was the champion. I hope you didn't listen too carefully, because you will have seen that it was absolute daylight robbery and I probably didn't actually win within the rules. But it's too late now. Referee's decision was final. So the quiz is very simple. I will give the boys a topic to name a certain amount of wrestlers within a field of X. They will then bid on how many they think they can answer. So, for example, Crush may say 7, Elliott may say 8, Will may say 9. Crush doesn't think that Will can do it, and then Will has to try and shoot for 9. This week's topic, with the return of NXT UK tonight, I want you all to name as many title holders as you can from NXT UK. So these are people that have held gold within NXT UK. These can be men, these can be women, these can be tag teams. A caveat on the tag teams, I don't want the tag team name, I want the individual wrestlers within the tag team. So for example, if we were talking about old Raw tag team holders, I don't want the Hardy Boys, I want Matt Hardy and I want Jeff Hardy. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 names to pick from the men's NXT UK champion, the women's NXT UK champion, and the NXT UK tag team champions. Crush, I'm going to come to you first. Within a minute, how many names can you name?
I'm going to start below. I'm going to go 5.
5 from Crush. Will, do I see 6?
Yeah, I'll give you 6, yeah.
Will reckons he can do 50%, just 50% of all the champions within NXT UK. Elliott,
I don't think I can do more than 6. And I don't think Will can do more than 6 either.
Okay. Crush, will you take us to 7?
I mean,
I'm going to go balls out. I'm going to second name all 12.
Crush is going 12 for 12 within 60 seconds. So you need to name
30.
one name. Okay, Will, that's final. I have to take your answer. I'm sorry.
JK
Okay,
Rob.
Crush.
Yeah.
Let me get my timer up.
Uh-huh.
You have a little bit of time to think while I faff around with my fancy watch.
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready?
Yep.
You're going to name all 12 NXT UK champions within a minute.
Yep.
In 3, 2, 1, go.
So starting with the men's title, you've got Tyler Bate, Pete Dunne, Walter. The women's title is Rhea Ripley, Toni Storm, Kaylee Ray. Tag team titles currently is Gallus, so that is Wolfgang and Mark Coffey. Then you've had James Drake and Zach Gibson. And then to complete the list, Flash Morgan Webster and Mark Andrews, who are the interview for today.
Wow.
Within 25 seconds, the biggest mark I've ever met within my lifetime, Crush has named all 12 NXT UK champions of all time and is this week's quiz winner. I'm going to give you a round of applause for that because that was genuinely quite impressive.
Thank you. I can put up my CV.
That means, Crush, next week it is your turn for the quiz topic. I'm excited to see where you go with it.
I always like to throw a little curveball.
You do, and I'm very nervous about it. However, you are also very easily duped and swayed, much like most wrestling referees. So I think I'm actually in with a chance next week of fooling you and saying that I bid far lower than I really did. The Thunderdome is well and truly underway and will be spoilt with another pay-per-view in just over a week's time as Clash of Champions comes live from the Amway Center in Orlando. And how better to enjoy watching along than with the company of some fresh and delicious beer from all over the globe. There's no need to worry about heading to the shops to stock up. Beer 52 will bring the beer to you. They're offering a free case of 8 craft beers sourced and curated from the best breweries on the planet. All you need to do is go to www.beer52.com/The Go Home Show and cover £5.95 for postage. Each case is delivered direct to your doorstep, so there's no need to leave the house. If you're looking to stock up, now is your chance. Beer 52 is the world's most popular craft beer discovery club with over 150,000 members that they send a brand new case to every month. Each month's case has a different theme. Past themes have included beer from New Zealand, from South Africa, from Korea, and from all over the USA and Europe. So that's beer52.com. That's the word beer, then the number 5, the number 2.com/The Go Home Show for free, yes, free beer. And now we go over to Wrestling Room 101. Now, last week it was Elliott, I believe, versus Crusher. And the topic was what, Elliott?
It was the inconsistency in the finishing moves, and I trounced Crush quite badly.
Yep.
It was the most convincing argument, arguably ever, in wrestling history. So, yeah.
That therefore means that because Crush lost last week, he is banned from this week's Wrestling Room 101. And it means that Elliott will be the judge of what goes in. And this week, bringing the topic to Room 101 is our glorious host, Mr. Will Brazier. So, Will, it will be me versus you. What are you bringing to Room 101 this week?
Right, yes, Chris, it is over to me. And I was sat in bed last night and I was thinking, what really grinds my gears? Is it Brexit? Is there multiple debates on the political system in the UK? Probably, yes, but that's not for this podcast. It is, in wrestling terms, the brand new Intercontinental. And then I thought, hang on a minute, they've done the same to the US belt as well. The John Cena-fication of these belts. I was a big fan of the spinning belt, don't get me wrong, but the Intercontinental title, when they changed that, the Intercontinental title for me is one of the most prestigious titles in wrestling history. And I don't know if it's the way I watched wrestling and grew up. It was just always the exciting title of like, this is the next big thing. And the belt was in some sort of array. The one that I grew up with was the little blue bits behind. And then obviously they went to the white belt, which was just really nice, just really classic. And and just we spoke a bit about heritage with the NXT UK tournament coming up, but just it fit its cause. And now with these monstrosities, I just feel we are moving away from a bit of class and decorum that, to be honest, I don't have a normal life, but when I look at those belts, I want to see.
So I have two points against what you were saying. The first one is a rebuttal to what you actually said, which was you were looking for class and decorum from your title belts.
Yeah.
This is the world of professional wrestling. Class and decorum went out the window whenever Chris Jericho peed into William Regal's teapot. Like, let's not pretend that what we are watching is some great ode to Shakespeare. We're watching big, meaty men bumping meat. We're watching the best female athletes in the world doing incredible things. We're not here for class and decorum. I want to see athletes do freak athletic things. I don't need the belts to be classy. I don't need them to be cool. I want them to be big and over the top and brash and bold, because that's what wrestling is. That's the best thing about wrestling, is that it is over the top nonsense. It's silly nonsense at its most pure and beautiful, and that is the point of wrestling. Now, to take the actual other side of the same coin as to why you are wrong about these redesigned belts, is that when it comes down to it, there's a reason that Vince McMahon is a billionaire. Wrestling is a business. We know it's a business. We don't, let's not shy away from that. So these belt redesigns were done for one very, very simple thing, is that these will sell more units off the shelves, which then pay the wages for the WWE to bring in the best wrestlers. The more merch they sell, the more money they have. Now, that's literally what they exist for, is to sell replicas of these belts.
I have to say, you both gave a really compelling argument either way. You mentioned the spinner belt, Will, and I don't know if it's just because I grew up with it, but yeah. I loved that. I loved both the US iteration.
Oh yeah, same, yeah. But I just think, sorry, just the rebuttal that one for every Chris Jericho there is a William Regal, and that's why we love professional wrestling. Yes, they have been redesigned, but and I love big, brash, and bold as well. But I just think they're very generic. They're not they're very humdrum in the middle of the park. I'm up for a redesign. I'm up for putting the coffers in Vince's pocket, but they're just very generic and shit.
As I say, I think you both give a really compelling argument. And as I was mentioning before, Will interrupted me quite rudely about the spinner belts, which might go out in your favour or not. I liked them as a kid. I liked having them. They seemed like a really good gimmick, and they were brash and they were over the top and they were something different. However, they also annoyed a lot of people. And I do believe that the belts that you like normally are the belts that you grew up with. And I don't know if it's just nostalgia kind of falling through with you, Will. However, I do have to give a bit of a curveball here and say I do probably agree with Will. I think you give a great argument, Chris. I really do. But the thing is that I think they are quite bland, and I don't think they really bring up the wrestler whilst holding them. The IC title previously, which I'll always think of with The Miz and his great reign a couple of years ago, is it was so stylish and slick and iconic that you think of the wrestler with the title. The fact that we've got 3 people fighting for the IC title right now, and I'm not even thinking of the belt, I'm more concerned about the wrestlers in the ring. That to me probably says there is maybe a design issue with them. But I'm sure there are people out there that love these belts, and because they're going to be the first IC title and US title belts that they see, but I don't think they bring more attention to it. So because of that, I'm going to agree with Will and put the new US and Intercontinental Championship title belts into Room 101. But that's just my opinion as the judge of this section. What do you guys think? I want you guys of our Go Home Show and podcast audience to let us know on Twitter, and also to let us know in the comments below on YouTube.
Elliott, you're a gentleman, a scholar, and a fine friend. Speaking of friends, Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster are 2 friends, and they have a tag team together. And our very own Mick has spoken to them today about the return of NXT UK and a whole lot more.
Today, I'm delighted to be joined by NXT UK superstars Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster. How are you both?
Good, thanks, man. Thanks for having us on the show.
Yeah, really excited. Thanks, man.
And obviously tonight, it is the big one. It's Thursday night, and it is NXT UK is back. What are you most excited about the return?
For me personally, I'm just excited for the world to see us kind of make a comeback, to be honest. I mean, I think NXT UK literally displays the best wrestling that you can get from Europe. And I think that we've come back even more motivated than ever before. And genuinely, I'm just excited to see the world's reaction to everything, the production, because I'm sure you've seen the BT Sport venue that we're performing in. The news of the Heritage Cup is absolutely huge. I'm excited for it all. I really am. It sounds kind of generic, but I'm genuinely excited for the world to see NXT UK back in action better than ever.
And Flash, just picking up on Mark's point now about the facilities at BT Sport, I was lucky to go down in January when they launched the partnership. How have you found the facilities down there?
I think it's absolutely fantastic. I think we've been very fortunate since the start of the brand that we've been a touring brand. So we've been able to go every corner of this country and kind of show them what we're about. But, there's something special about having a home base. I think that's why NXT in the States has done so well with Full Sail. And the guys and girls at BT Sports they've been brilliant. The facilities are top notch. And I know I speak for everybody there when we say we can't wait for this to become our home base, for this to become our version of Full Sail. And, to just show the world that we have top quality wrestling and top quality production.
And how have you found it with no fans? Because obviously NXT UK is very, very popular over here, as with any show that comes over. How have you found it adjusting with no fans?
To be honest with you, it's quite daunting to start off with. You kind of, as performers, especially wrestling, the third or fourth person in the match is the fans. They give you that energy, you feed off them. And, some of the best moments ever is when that crowd erupts. So it was quite daunting to start off with. But I'm not going to lie, I can't really tell you what goes on. But being there with no fans, I kind of liked it. It really kind of drilled home that competition aspect and that true sporting aspect. I've really got into MMA over the last couple of months, especially during lockdown. And having it all like no fans and quite small and quite intimate, it's been quite lovely to watch. And I think that we capture that atmosphere just right.
And Mark, coming to you, I've read in an interview that you've done elsewhere about Shawn Michaels producing it via like a Zoom connection, whatever it is. How have you found that aspect? Yeah,
it's awesome. I mean, technology, right? How crazy is it that we can produce a wrestling show with Shawn Michaels and Triple H over the phone, essentially? You know what I mean? Over the internet. I think that's mind-blowing. But I'll be honest, it goes to show again that the kind of the level that BT Sport venue is at. I mean, you can see how it looks. It looks incredible. And the fact that now it's going to become our home base, it's like our equivalent of Full Sail. And quite frankly, I think it gives Full Sail a run for its money. I'm going to throw out that right now. I mean, Full Sail's an incredible space as well, but BT Sport one is mind-blowing. And the fact that we can have, guys like Shawn Michaels and Triple H on the other end, watching it as it's happening, giving us feedback as it's happening, it's amazing. I never thought that the UK wrestling scene would have something like this in NXT UK and in the BT Sport venue. The fact that we get to work now, under these circumstances is incredible. And I mean, I'm just going to keep saying how excited I am, to be honest, because it's like nothing I've ever seen before. It's nothing I've ever experienced in my 15 years of wrestling. So I'm just super excited for everybody to see what we've come up with.
And Flash, picking up on something you mentioned with the Heritage Cup, you've obviously been revealed as one of the participants. But what is, without any spoilers, what makes British Round rules so special?
Well, I think the best way, I think we've been describing it this way for a while, is it's the old school meets the new school. It's the old British style meets the new modern wrestling. And I think it's so exciting, it's so different. You've got to think to yourself, I've got 3 minutes and I've got to try to get this game plan in play all these 3 minutes. Sometimes that will go to plan, sometimes that won't. But after that, you've got a gap, you've got 20 seconds, you can rethink, you can go to your corner, you can kind of, adapt, right? Did that work? Did this work? And then approach it again. And on the flip side as well, me and Mark, we're real exciting wrestlers, we're real fast paced, we're quick movers. Once we start momentum building, that's where matches really become like our bread and butter. And there's nothing worse than, have that momentum building and running, and then the bell goes. And then you kind of got to put it on hold, and you've got to kind of figure out now, right, okay, do I continue with what I've been doing? Or they now had that 20 seconds to anticipate it, and are you going to have to change what you're doing? So It really is that kind of modern style of wrestling mixed with the old school. And you just got to kind of think that this is going to open up the door of possibilities no end and really kind of show what NXT UK is all about.
Obviously, with the 20-second break, as you described, it's almost like introducing the American audience to the boxing-style UK match, so it combines them both quite well.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, as I said, I got really into my MMA over the last couple of months, and kind of watching that and then hearing that this was getting announced was brilliant for me. And there's a lot of competitors here that have done this sort of rounds before, and there's people who haven't done them at all. So I think it's a total mix of trying to figure out, okay, if I've already done these before and now it's on TV, do I bring what I've learned before into this, or do I try to approach it completely different? And again, people who've never done it before, people who've never seen it before, are really going to have to try to get used to it. But again, I think it's really opening the door for a whole complete different style and kind of making us completely different to what you see over in America.
And one of your probably career highlights, or the best career highlight, last year, Cardiff NXT Takeover. Can you describe that feeling, both of you, of when that bell rang, how you felt?
You know what? It was as incredible as it was relief as well. Because I can tell you that me and Flash, the week leading up to that event, we were both so nervous. It flipped back and forth. I'd be nervous and he'd be calm, and he'd be nervous and I'd be calm, constantly ping-ponging back and forth. And I'll be honest, it felt like it was a pinch me. It was a I'm dreaming moment, because it wasn't just that we won the tag championships. It wasn't just that it was in Wales in front of, all of our friends and family. On top of that, it was, we're the first Welsh champions in WWE history. On top of that, it was my band played the theme song for the event. Like, it felt like everything had been lined up. It was too good to be true. And we were convinced that something was going to go wrong, an injury or we would screw up or some way, we wouldn't capture the championships. And I feel like when it actually happened, it was this relief of, okay, we nailed it. It all went fine. But yeah, it was overwhelming, to be honest. And that feeling didn't die down for a good few days, because I felt like, being in front of our home country and so many of our friends and family were there, and people watching at home, the messages were flooding in afterwards. And still to this day, I get goosebumps thinking about it.
And you, Flash, obviously your celebration was very Eddie Guerrero after winning the title, jumping into the crowd.
I think I said in an interview recently, like there's two aspects that kind of really drummed home me wanting to become a wrestler. And the first one was seeing Eddie Guerrero, as you said, win the championship, jumping in the crowd and celebrating. And that was the moment I went to myself, oh, I'd love to do this. This is something I'd love to do. And I expressed it to a few people in my hometown, and that's when I discovered Adrian Street. And Adrian Street then was like this guy who'd, was from the same town as I'm from. And he went off to America and he conquered the world. And then, so like to be able to go out and celebrate in the crowd with my hometown like Eddie Guerrero, but also to get backstage and see Adrian Street stood there, clapping and coming up to me and Mark. It's like, let's get a picture together. It really was a full circle moment.
Thank you so much to Mark and Flash taking time out of their day to talk to us. If you want to watch the full interview, head over to our YouTube, SPORF Wrestling, or you can listen to the full interview, just audio, not without seeing my face if you don't want to, on all good podcasting apps. We've got plenty of interviews lined up in the next few weeks. Let you into a little secret, maybe a current WWE champion and an NXT UK superstar again. Let us know on Twitter, though, at Go Home Show Pod, who you'd like to see us interview in the coming months. And that leads us nicely into the retro recap, the final segment of today's podcast. And we're throwing it back, all the way back to the start of the NXT UK brand, which was in Blackpool. And Chris is going to absolutely hammer here, but I was there in Blackpool, in the Winter Gardens, both nights. 2 very, very good nights of wrestling. There was 16 wrestlers involved. I'm going to list them all now, and it sounds like it's going to be a quiz for next week. We had Mark Andrews, Tyler Bate, Danny Birch, Joseph Connors, Jordan Devlin, James Drake, Pete Dunne, H.C. Dyer, Sam Gradwell, Saxon Huxley, Roy Johnson, Dan Maloney, Trent Seven, Tucker, T-Bone, and Wolfgang, all competing to become the first ever NXT UK champion. But back then, it was just the WWE United Kingdom champion. Chris, Elliott, what were your highlights of that tournament?
For me, I think the highlight of the tournament was just the entire work of one Mr. Pete Dunne. who, for me, even though he didn't end up winning the belt, I think he was the one who probably got the most notoriety from the tournament. The fact that he, at the end of night one, ended up battering Sam Gradwell, as they were building up to the following night's action, only for William Regal to be like going, "You need to stop this," and he's just doing that. No, it's okay. I've made my point. I thought that just added so much more to it because, I mean, for me, from watching Pete Dunne on WCPW/Defiant back in the day, I always viewed him as just a babyface. Really, I really liked him, but this was the first way I'd seen him properly portrayed as the bruiserweight, not just a guy who's somewhat short in stature but is hard as nails. It was actually like, no, this guy is a legitimate badass. I thought he was absolutely fantastic. I thought all the matches were great as well. This is a weird thing for a completely new thing for WWE to have a UK showcase, and every match was fantastic. Everything had a clear babyface and a clear heel, and all of the results, in my opinion, kind of worked out. Even though my early favourite going in was Joseph Connors, because again I'd watched him on Defiant and everything back in the day. I thought he was going to go on and win the whole thing. I didn't feel bad about that. I felt really happy with the story that they were bringing forward with this, and got me so invested into NXT UK as a potential project, which we were all assuming would happen. But this was just the final nail in the coffin, and we're like, yeah, British wrestling is here to stay with the WWE.
Chris, coming to you, obviously there's a lot of UK talent back in that tournament, in them 16 names that I mentioned. As a UK wrestler yourself, what was that like to see WWE put all the eyes on the UK wrestling scene?
Do you know what? It was... Trying to say this without sounding like an absolute wet wipe, but it was actually quite inspiring. By which I mean, like, there's a lot of... So I didn't start wrestling until after this tournament. In fact, actually, it was a match that was born out of this that kind of convinced me to really get into it, which was the Tyler Bate Pete Dunne match at Takeover Chicago, I believe it was. Which, if you've not seen it, watch it, because it's an absolutely nonsense match, and it's a really, really good showcase of UK talent. But it was actually when I look back on the tournament now that you kind of realise a lot of the guys in that tournament and got given a real good spotlight are very ordinary guys, exceptionally talented wrestlers, but you would see these guys at shows and you can chat to them, and they're very, very like regular people. So like people like James Drake is a coach in Liverpool, like an hour from here kind of thing, and a very, very well respected coach. People like, obviously, you've got Pete Dunne, you've got Tyler Bate. I mean, Tyler Bate was 19 when this tournament was happening. Like, let's just take that in for a second. That's nonsense, isn't it? That makes us all feel terrible. As me sat here as a 30-year-old talking about 19-year-old Tyler Bate winning this tournament. But like the likes of Dan Maloney, the likes of Wolfgang, Tyson T-Bone, these guys are real monuments within the UK scene, and it's so good to see them get the proper exposure that they've deserved for years and years and years of hard work.
I mean, yeah, like, I think the point you make there about them being just normal guys made it so much better for us over here as fans. Because I remember, like, going to Progress and it's just the UK champions there. Like, people you see in the WWE are there. You can just talk to them, you buy merch off them, talk to them, get a photo, and they sound like Trent Seven is one of the nicest people I've ever met, as well as being the most hilarious. Like, when he was doing the Fight Club Pro shows, when he couldn't wrestle, he was coming out and doing the MC part beforehand, and he was just ripping into everyone. It was hilarious. But then on the flip side of that, you've got sort of even the smaller promotions, the well-respected promotions over here, like Future Shock. That's down in Press, which is near where I'm from. And there's probably, Chris, you've wrestled there yourself. I've seen you wrestle there. There's probably, max like 200 people there. And to see the belt being brought down there by Pete Dunne, or Zach and Drake are coming down and doing shows, it's just so inspiring to that next generation of fans as well.
Yeah, I mean, like, just on that, T-Bone is is pre-lockdown. I don't know if it's still doing it. He might be doing whatever he's doing now. But T-Bone was the guy who brought the ring down to every Future Shock show. It was T-Bone's ring that we're all in. And there he is. He gets his moment for WWE is like, this is us starting something new. Like, just little things like that were really, really cool. And I was reading back into the tournament yesterday. Do you know what I never realised? And this, I bet you don't realise this either, Crush, how short a lot of the matches were.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, they were proper, like, it was such like a quick hit of, like, British wrestling, but done so well. I honestly think it's one of the best executed ideas that WWE has had for a long time.
Obviously, to be cynical, this was purely made, this whole tournament, to stop World of Sport from potentially taking over the British wrestling scene over here in the UK. And the problem with World of Sport for me is it came across as a modern equivalent to the kind of the boring, almost parody-esque sort of style of 80s wrestling over here, your giant haystacks and everything, which, yeah, if you like it, that's great. For me, I think it's terrible. I don't think it adds any storylines. I don't think it builds any characters. And I think that's why World of Sport probably didn't do as well as it was intending. This felt legitimate. This felt like it was special. Even Michael Cole being there with Nigel McGuinness. I know that Michael Cole gets a lot of flack and that he's not the best commentator in some people's eyes, but him being there adds a lot of legitimacy to it. This is a big show. This is not just, a little indie thing where we've got a couple of guys who are British wrestling each other. This is a legitimate, big step for us. We want to make this the pinnacle of British wrestling. We want this to make a stepping stone for people over here in the UK so that they can become fully fledged WWE superstars going forward. And for me, as you say, it was so perfectly executed. And it really has showcased how really important the British wrestling scene is, not only to WWE, but in wrestling in general, because we've had so many great stars come out of this, and in particular in this tournament.
But as well as all of this tournament going on, we also had the Tommy End's WWE debut. And for those not familiar with that name, he's now known as Aleister Black, but when he was on the independent scene in Europe, he's known as Tommy End. And again, the crowd went mental. Like, he wasn't facing just anyone. It was Neville, who at the time was a huge star on the main roster. And he came down, he's like, there's no man in this kingdom, no man in this continent that's going to be able to challenge me, go one-on-one. And then, bang, Tommy End's music hits. It's a black screen, and then his name pops up, and the crowd legit was mental. And yeah, what a great show. And what a way to start the NXT UK brand.
So that is the end of this week's show. Thank you so much for listening. We have discussed who has the best film role of all time of any WWE star. But let us know what you think. Let us know on Twitter at GoHomeShowPod. Could you have beaten Crusher in the quiz? Probably not, because he literally answered every single name that was there. But could you have done it in under 25 seconds? Should the new IC and US title designs have gone into Room 101? Of course, they shouldn't have, Elliott. That is the worst decision I've ever seen made. And you sided with Will, which is equally as bad. But by the by, we also heard from Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster with that brilliant interview with our very own Crusher. Make sure you go to our YouTube, SPORF Wrestling, to hear the full thing. Who should we interview in the upcoming weeks? Crush teased potentially a little current WWE champion. We'll just have to wait and see. We'll wait and see. Don't forget, we have also teamed up with WWE Euroshop. We are giving away a prize bundle that includes a Brahma Bull mini title, a Drew McIntyre shirt, a Bayley t-shirt, and an Undisputed Era water bottle. All you have to do to enter that competition is go onto Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review, and leave your Twitter handle in there, and we will draw that prize very, very soon. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from, so you're the first to know when a new episode launches. And if you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, we'd love to know what you think. Don't forget to check out the full Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster interview. That is it from us. We will see you next week. Let's go home.